So today we will discuss about the scalp. Scalp is a tissue covering the skull vault or skull cap. Okay, so this light blue colored area, this portion is forming the scalp. Okay, here is the extent from anteriorly from the superciliary arch, upper margin of the orbit, up to posteriorly superior nuchal line, and on each side up to the zygomatic arch and external acoustic meatus. Okay, here ear opening is the external acoustic meatus. So scalp is a tissue covering of the skull vault or skull cap, and it is the extent. It extends anteriorly up to the supraorbital margins, posteriorly up to the external occipital protuberance and superior nuchal line, and on each side up to the zygomatic arch and external acoustic meatus. And some authors consider that scalp extends up to the superior temporal line on lateral aspect. Okay, these lines are clear. Next we are going to layers of the scalp. Scalp comes in your short note. Okay, these layers are very important, and some explain why also comes from the scalp. Okay, so you must know these layers. There are 5 layers. First, outermost is the skin. After that, superficial fossa, which consists of subcutaneous connective tissue. Okay. After that, deep fossa, also known as epicranial aponeurosis, then loose areolar tissue and pericranium. So these are the 5 layers of the scalp from superficial to deep. Skin, superficial fossa consists of subcutaneous connective tissue, deep fossa or epicranial aponeurosis, loose areolar tissue and pericranium. So first words of all this, it is similar to SCALP. Okay, S is skin, C is connective tissue layer, subcutaneous connective tissue layer, A is aponeurosis, that is epicranial aponeurosis or Gallia aponeurotica, and then there is loose areolar tissue L, and P is the pericranium. So you can remember like this mnemonic scalp. Okay, 5 layers of the scalp. See here, these are the 5 layers. Here, this part we have enlarged in this view. So outermost, this is skin, then yellow colored portion. It represents the connective tissue layer, loose connective tissue layer, and after that here is the aponeurotic layer. The green colored one is the aponeurotic layer or Gallia aponeurotica. Next there is loose areolar tissue. This is also a loose connective tissue layer, and after that pericranium. Pericranium is outer covering of the skull bone. Okay, so these are the 5 layers of the scalp. And inside this 5 layer, this is pericranium. After that, here is the pericranium. Then you will see the diploid tissue, and here is the inner layer of the cranial bones formed by the endosteal layer of the dura mater, and here is the meningeal layer of the dura mater. In between these 2 layers lies this dural venous sinuses. Okay, and these are the veins, emissary veins connecting the dural venous sinuses with this connective tissue layer. Second layer from the superficial aspect. These emissary veins are connecting this connective tissue layer with this dural venous sinuses. That's why in infection of this connective tissue layer, it is readily spread to this dural venous sinuses and will lead to further complications. Okay, and these veins are also connected to this layer. Diploe lies in between the outer and inner table of the skull bones. So these are the diploe veins. Diploe veins are also connected to this dural venous sinuses. Okay, this vein is connecting connective tissue layer with the dural venous sinus, and this is one diploe vein. Okay. Next, this schematic diagram you practice for scalp. Okay. Outermost is the skin. Here is the connective tissue layer. Here you can see multiple sections of the blood vessels, arteries and veins. And some veins, these are the emissary veins connecting this connective tissue layer with the dural venous sinus. Here is the aponeurotic layer or gallia aponeurotica. After that, loose areolar connective tissue layer and then pericranium. Pericranium is covering the outer surface of the skull bone. Okay. And this is inner surface of the skull bone, outer table and inner table. In between this diploid tissue, so this will be the diploid vein that is also connected to the dural venous sinuses. Next. So these are the 5 layers in short. So skin of the scalp is hairy and it is adherent to the epicranial aponeurosis, and numerous hair follicles and sebaceous glands are present in the skin. And after the skin there is subcutaneous connective tissue which is called superficial fossa, and it consists of dense connective tissue and it gives passage for the blood vessels and nerves. Next is epicranial aponeurosis, also called gallia aponeurotica, and it gives insertion to the frontalis and occipitalis muscles. Next is loose areolar tissue, anteriorly extends into the upper eyelid and posteriorly extends up to the superior nuchal line, and it gives passage to the emissary vein. Okay, so loose areolar tissue. After that, pericranium, it is periosteum of the cranial bones and loosely attached to the bones. So these are the 5 layers. We'll discuss in details. Next. So skin of the scalp is hairy except over the forehead, and it is adherent to the epicranial aponeurosis by dense superficial fossa. Hence, it is difficult to separate the skin from the epicranial aponeurosis, and it contains numerous hair follicles and associated sebaceous glands. Okay, so this is skin of the scalp. Next is subcutaneous connective tissue or superficial fossa of the scalp. It is made up of dense fibrous connective tissue and that firmly adhere the skin with the epicranial aponeurosis, and it provides space for passage of the blood vessels and nerves. And the walls of the vessels are adhered to the connective tissue, and hence in injury of vessels may lead to profuse bleeding due to failure of retraction of the vessels. Okay. Next. Next is epicranial aponeurosis or gallia aponeurotica. It is a fibrous sheet that can move over the pericranium along with the overlying skin and the fossa, superficial fossa, and receives the insertion of frontalis anteriorly and occipitalis posteriorly. And these are the attachment of the epicranial aponeurosis. It is attached to the external occipital protuberance, highest or superior nuchal lines, and superior temporal line. This attachment is asked in your viva. Okay, attachment of the gallia aponeurotica. Okay. Next is loose areolar tissue. It consists of loose connective tissue, anteriorly extends into the eyelid because frontalis muscle does not have any bony attachment. It is attached over the aponeurosis only. And posteriorly it extends up to the superior nuchal line and laterally the superior temporal line, and it gives passage to the emissary veins, and that connects the intracranial venous sinuses and extracranial vein. Okay, so this is loose areolar tissue. Next is pericranium. It is periosteum of the skull bones and it is loosely attached to the skull bone except at the suture and where it is firmly adherent. Okay, so this is pericranium. So these are the 5 layers of the skull. Next we will discuss the only muscle of the scalp, occipitofrontalis muscle. Okay, it has two bellies, occipital belly and frontal belly, and both are inserted into the epicranial aponeurosis. See, this green colored one is the epicranial aponeurosis, and these are the frontal bellies. Here are the occipital bellies, and these are inserted over this epicranial aponeurosis. So frontal bellies, also known as frontalis, these are wider and mostly fuse in the midline here, frontal bellies, and they arise from the skin of the upper eyelid and forehead. An occipital belly or occipitalis overlies the back of the skull and originates from the lateral two-thirds of the superior nuchal lines of the occipital bone. And insertion, they all of them are inserted over the epicranial aponeurosis. Next is innervation. The frontalis is supplied by the temporal branch and occipitalis by the posterior auricular branch of the facial nerve. Okay. Next is actions. It helps in these frontalis and occipitalis, helps in movement of the scalp over the vault of the skull. And contraction of the frontalis elevates the eyebrows. Surprise expression is done by this frontalis. Okay, this frontalis. And if the eyebrows are fixed, frontalis produces transverse wrinkles of the forehead. Okay. So these are the functions of this muscle, occipitofrontalis. Next is surgical layers of the scalp. The first three layers of the scalp is firmly adherent to each other, and they are considered as surgical layers of the scalp or scalp proper. Skin, connective tissue, and the epicranial aponeurosis. These are attached to each other, and these three are together called surgical layers of the scalp. Next is superficial temporal region. Okay, here is the temporal region near the ear. It is the area between the superior temporal line and the zygomatic arch. Okay, and it is considered as part of the scalp, and it consists of these 6 layers: skin, superficial fossa, extension of epicranial aponeurosis, then temporal fossa, temporalis muscle, and pericranium. These 4 and 5 is different in this temporal region. There is temporal fossa, and below the temporal fossa there will be temporalis muscle. And this temporalis fossa, it is a thick fibrous sheet, and it is morphologically represents the cell of the bone, and it can be used as graft for tympanoplasty, for repair of the tympanic membrane. Okay, this is important. Okay, why the temporalis fossa is used in tympanoplasty? And it is that is repair of the tympanic membrane or eardrum, because in the same operation field it is located. In ear operation, temporal region is lying near the ear, and this fascia is similar to the similar to the eardrum, so there is less chance for graft rejection. That's why this temporalis fossa is used for this repair of the tympanic membrane. Okay, so this is one important explain why question. Next, we are going to blood supply of the scalp. Arterial supply, it is supplied by this following 5 arteries on each side. In front, supratrochlear artery, supraorbital artery, and superficial temporal artery. And posteriorly behind the auricle, posterior auricular artery and occipital artery. So these are the arterial supply. 3 arteries in front, 2 arteries behind the auricle. Next is, we will discuss these arteries in short. So supratrochlear enters the scalp by passing behind the external ear. Okay. Next is occipital artery, which is a branch of external carotid artery. It is tortuous, passes deep to the mastoid process and produces groove on this bone. And it pierces the trapezius to enter the superficial fossa of the scalp. Enters the scalp midway between the ear and external occipital protuberance, and above mentioned all the 5 arteries anastomose freely in the scalp. and thus the scalp is the site of potential circulation between the external and internal carotid artery. See, this supratrochlear and supraorbital, these are branched from the internal carotid, and this occipital artery, posterior auricular artery, superficial temporal, these are branched from the external carotid. So anastomosis is occurring between the branches of internal and external carotid arteries over the scalp. Okay. Next we are going to venous drainage. It is drained by these following veins. Same veins are named, same name as the arteries. So in front of the ear, supratrochlear vein, supraorbital vein, superficial temporal vein, and behind the ear, posterior auricular vein and occipital vein. Okay, so this is venous drainage of the scalp. So these veins we will discuss in short. Supratrochlear and supraorbital vein, they accompany the corresponding arteries, and at the medial angle of the eye they join to form the angular vein, and which continues downward as the facial vein. Okay. Next is superficial temporal vein. It descends in front of the tragus of the ear to enter the parotid glands, and in the substance of the parotid gland it joins the maxillary vein to form the retromandibular vein, and which divides into anterior and posterior divisions. Next is anterior division of retromandibular vein, which joins the facial vein to form common facial vein, which drains into internal jugular vein. You have read during the face, okay, retromandibular vein, and this posterior division of retromandibular vein joins the posterior auricular vein to form the external jugular vein, which runs downward in the neck and drain into the subclavian vein. These are important for your viva. Okay, face, during face or sometimes in viva table or in OSPI, it is given. Okay, fate of these two divisions of retromandibular veins, and how the facial vein is formed here at the medial angle of eye by joining of supratrochlear supraorbital vein. Next is occipital vein. It terminates in the suboccipital venous plexus. So these are the fates of these veins. Next we are going to lymphatic drainage of the scalp. Lymphatics from the anterior part of the scalp drain into preauricular or parotid lymph nodes, and they are situated on the lateral surface of the parotid glands. Posterior part of the scalp drains into the posterior auricular or mastoid and occipital lymph nodes. Okay, so these are the lymphatic drainage of the scalp. Next, some important things. Emissary veins. These emissary veins connect the extracranial veins of the scalp with the intracranial venous sinuses, and these emissary veins are valveless and help to equalize the venous pressures, extracranial and intracranial. And parietal emissary veins pass through the parietal vein and communicate with the superior sagittal sinus. Mastoid emissary vein pass through the mastoid foramen and communicate with the sigmoid sinus. Okay, different emissary veins are written here. Next is diploid veins. There are multiple types of diploid veins are there. They are located between the outer and inner tables of the skull, and four veins are there. Frontal diploic vein emerges at the supraorbital notch, open into the supraorbital vein. Anterior temporal diploic vein emerges from the greater wing of the sphenoid, open into the deep anterior temporal vein. And posterior temporal diploic vein emerges at the parieto-mastoid angle and opens into the transverse sinus. Occipital diploid vein emerges at the internal occipital protuberance and opens into the transverse sinus. Okay, so these are the opening of different diploid veins. Next, we are going to the nerve supply. Okay, innervation of the scalp is divided into sensory and motor supply. Okay, it is supplied by 10 nerves on each side. Out of these, 5 nerves, 4 sensory, 5 nerves supply in front of the auricle and 5 behind the auricle. And among these five, four are sensory, one is motor. In front of the auricle, same, and behind the auricle also four sensory, one motor supply behind the auricle. Okay, so here is the auricle. Five nerve is located in front of the auricle and five behind the auricle. Okay. See the nerves. Here is the supratrochlear nerve, supraorbital nerve, zygomaticotemporal, temporal branch of facial. The red colored one is the motor nerve, and auriculotemporal. Rest four are the sensory nerves. And behind the auricle, there is posterior auricular nerve, which is motor nerve, and other are sensory nerves. Great auricular, lesser occipital, greater occipital, and third occipital. These are sensory nerves. Okay. So here the nerves are given. So in front of the auricle, sensory nerves are supratrochlear nerve, branch of frontal nerve, which is again branch of ophthalmic division of trigeminal nerve. Supraorbital, branch of frontal nerve. Zygomaticotemporal, branch of zygomatic nerve, again division of maxillary division of trigeminal nerve. Auriculotemporal, branch of mandibular division of the trigeminal nerve. And motor nerve is temporal branch of the facial nerve. So these are located in front of the auricle. Behind the auricle, there are sensory nerves and motor nerve. Posterior auricular branch of facial nerve is the only motor nerve, rest are sensory. Posterior division of great auricular nerve, root value is C2, C3 from the cervical plexus, and lesser occipital also from cervical plexus, from ventral ramus of second cervical nerve, greater occipital nerve from dorsal ramus of C3, and third occipital nerve from dorsal ramus of C3 nerve. Okay. So these are the nerve supply of the scalp. So this is summarization. Extent of the scalp is anteriorly supraorbital margin, posteriorly external occipital protuberance, superior nuchal line on each side, zygomatic arch. And layers are these five layers: skin, subcutaneous connective tissue, epicranial aponeurosis, loose areolar tissue, and pericranium. Arterial supply by these five arteries: supratrochlear, supraorbital, superficial temporal, and posterior to auricle, posterior auricular, occipital. And nerve supply by these 10 nerves, 5 in front, 5 behind the auricle, 5 in front are sensory nerves, 4 supratrochlear, supraorbital, zygomaticotemporal, auriculotemporal, and motor is temporal branch of facial. And behind the auricle, these are sensory, one is motor. Great auricular is C2, C3, lesser occipital C2, greater occipital C2, third occipital C3. These are sensory nerves. And motor nerve is posterior auricular branch of facial nerve. Okay. These are some clinical aspects we will discuss. First one is sebaceous cyst. Sebaceous cyst of scalp is very common. Okay. Scalp has numerous sebaceous glands, hence it is a common site for the sebaceous cyst. Okay. Sebaceous cyst is infection of the sebaceous gland and there is enlargement of the gland. Next is surgical layer of the scalp. The first three layers that we have already discussed. First three layers of the scalp: skin, connective tissue, and epicranial aponeurosis. They are adhered to each other and cannot be separated surgically. Hence, they are called surgical layers of the scalp. Next is black eye. The blood from the damaged vessels in the layer of loose areolar tissue of the scalp extends anteriorly into the roof of the nose and upper eyelids, and it occurs as the frontalis muscle and epicranial aponeurosis do not have any bony attachment anteriorly and results in black eye. See here, see this is fourth layer. From the fourth layer, that is loose areolar tissue, from this fourth layer the blood can enter into the upper eyelid, connective tissue of the upper eyelid, and it will cause black eye. And due to bony attachment of occipitalis and epicranial aponeurosis, the blood cannot extend beyond the external occipital protuberance, superior nuchal line and superficial temporal lines. Okay, because only one way is open anteriorly, so it will accumulate in the upper eyelid and it will cause black eye. Okay, if bleeding occurs in this fourth layer, in the loose connective tissue layer. Next is dangerous area of the scalp. The layer of the loose areolar tissue is dangerous area of the scalp because emissary veins connect the veins of this layer with the dural venous sinuses. Hence, any infection or loose areolar tissue layer easily spread to the dural venous sinuses, and it may lead to thrombosis of the dural venous sinuses and which may be fatal. This is very frequently given. Okay, dangerous area of the scalp. So connective tissue, loose connective tissue layer is the dangerous area of the scalp. Very frequently given short note or part of the long question you will be given. Okay. Next is safety valve hematoma. In fracture of the cranial vault, it causes escape of the intracranial hematoma into subaponeurotic space of the scalp through the fracture line, and thus it prevents compression of the cerebrum, compression of the brain, and the process of collection of blood in the subaponeurotic layer or fourth layer is called safety valve hematoma. Okay, because it prevents compression over the brain and further brain damage. That's why it is called safety valve hematoma. And in this fourth layer, the blood will accumulate to form the hematoma. Next is cephal hematoma. Cephal hematoma, the pericranium is firmly adherent to the suture lines. Hence, collection of blood or fluid deep to the pericranium takes shape of the particular bone. Like if it occurs over the parietal bone, it will take the shape of parietal bone, or temporal bone takes shape of this bone, frontal bone, it will take shape of the cranial bone, and this collection of fluid is called cephal hematoma, and it commonly occurs in the parietal region, mainly parietal region it is common. Next is caput succedaneum. It is subcutaneous edema of the scalp produced during the delivery of the baby, and it occurs due to interference in the venous return during the passage of the head through the birth canal, and it usually subsides in few days on its own. Okay, caput succedaneum. See here, this is subgaleal hematoma lying below the galea aponeurotica. Here is the cephal hematoma has been shown, and this is epidural hematoma, and this is subdural hematoma, and this is caput succedaneum. Okay, here accumulation of fluid occurs in this subcutaneous layer below the skin. Okay, caput succedaneum. It is lying superficial to this galea aponeurotica, this caput succedaneum. Okay. Next is scalp wound bleeding. The scalp wound bleeds profusely because the vessels are prevented from retraction after their injury, and this is because of firm adherence of the vessel wall with the fibrous connective tissues. And what is the treatment to stop this bleeding? You have to apply pressure on the bleeding vessels against the scalp wound. Okay, so this is scalp wound. Why the scalp wound bleeds profusely? This is also a explain why question, because vessel walls are connected to the connective tissue and prevent retraction of the vessels. Okay, that's why there is profuse bleeding in scalp injury. Next is healing of the avulsed scalp. As the scalp and superficial temporal region is richly supplied by anastomosing vessels, the avulsed portion need not to cut away. It can be placed on the position and stitched. It usually heals. Okay. If due to some reason some part is avulsed from the scalp, you have to place it and stitch, give the stitches, and it will heal on its own. Next is gaping wound of the scalp. If the epicranial aponeurosis is divided transversely, the wound of the scalp gap, and such wound needs stitching of the layer of the aponeurosis carefully. Okay, so you have to and give the stitches. This is gaping wound of the scalp. You have to suture the epicranial aponeurosis layer and also the another suture for the skin. Okay, to prevent the gaping of the scalp wound. Okay, so these are the clinical aspects. Clinical aspects are very important for explain why. Why the scalp wound bleeds, this gaping wound of the scalp, and also this cephal hematoma, this dangerous area of the scalp, safety valve hematoma, all these are important. Explain why. And black eye, why black eye occurs. Blood cannot go posteriorly and laterally, only anteriorly it can go to the upper eyelid. That's why black eye occurs, bleeding occurs in the loose connective tissue layer. Okay. And surgical layers of scalp is the superficial three layers: skin, connective tissue, epicranial aponeurosis. They adhere to each other and can be separated surgically. Hence, they are called the surgical layer of the scalp. Okay, any queries from these topics? So you practice a schematic diagram of the scalp and prepare the 5 layers. Okay, it comes as a short note, and these clinical aspects are important for your MCQs and explain whys. Okay, and also sometimes asked in your viva. And sometimes the blood supply also comes. Blood supply, arterial supply, venous drainage. Okay, that's all. Any queries?